I have a question I wanted to jump to that it was related to the original question. Let me see if I remember it now because, all right, my ADD as it goes. All right, so we were talking about like at what point do you draw the line between accountability of what you teach and what's actually executed. And what I've noticed, especially when dealing with aversives, there are some clients that go, got it. There's a problem, focus on the problem,
100%.
fix the problem, got it. And then I've also seen that to a detriment, right? And then on the other side, I've seen people who avoid the problems because emotionally maybe they can't bring themselves to do what they need to do, right? And so, like for my own experience, like I can give someone a solution, right? Whether or not they do the solution,
that's on them.
It's completely up to them, right? But I've also seen this other aspect where sometimes the relationship becomes so focused on seeing where the dog's fucking up, they forget to tell the dog when they're doing good,
or they feel bad, or they
they hyper focus on something. They hyper focus on either how they're feeling, or they hyper focus on really making sure that dog knows when he's fucking up. And kind of we see an imbalance of a relationship on either side, right? Where if you're an owner who's only addressing your dog when they're fucking up, then you may not have the best relationship with that dog.
Yeah,
makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I often state is to be an effective rehabber, you need to take your heart out of it, which always comes across as cold and uncaring. But
well, why is cold necessarily a bad thing?
No, there's a reason why, and they will never admit it because they don't want to be, God forbid they bring their dog to Jeff Gellman. I do rehab a lot of dog trainers' personal dogs.
Right.
They know the information. They teach it every day. But for some reason, when it comes to their own dogs,
they can't bring themselves
They can't emotionally do it. And with my dogs, I'm more rational. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. 86,400 seconds in a day. I have no problem delivering a 1 to, even if I had to do a 10-second, which only would be for 6 protocols that I do.
Right.
But usually it's a 1 to 3 second level of discomfort.
Right.
Out of 86,400 seconds. And then spending rest of the day doing some really cool freaking stuff with my dogs.
Right.
I just can't logically comprehend the struggle. Now, does that make me cold and uncaring, or just a rational human being who wants to live the best life with their dog? And we don't see, so we pre-screen every client that wants to do a boarding train or a one-on-one.
Right.
We probably turn away half the business that people want to hire us. And it's not because lack of funds. It's not because we can't rehab their dog. I want them, the owner, to be successful. And I don't want them to be successful for a testimonial or for a rating or for anything like that. I don't mind if people talk trash. It's more about I respect their investment too much. And I think that if they can't be successful, why would I allow them to spend the money? And this is not negative thinking. I think it's the kindest thing you can do to an owner saying, you're not ready for me yet. You're not ready for me.
Yeah.
And
that's fascinating.
And I think when it comes to the seminar, anybody's allowed, as long as you know how I train, but that's not a mystery because I list it. That's another thing is there's probably about 2 million minimum signatures on petitions around the world right now to ban me. And there's always picketers outside my seminars. It's semi-comical.
Oh, really?
It's semi-comical.
Yeah.
It's like guys, like I'm coming to Chicago. There's 30 people that are going to be there. Like
if you don't like it, just don't go.
It's like more people are shot every weekend that attend my seminars.
Right.
Once a year. You have bigger problems than Jeff Gellman. So,
well, here's a question I wanted to ask you then, which I think that segues into pretty perfectly. Is we were just talking about, in the seminar circuit, you make it no secret, and before that, I think it was very fascinating because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my perception, my perception, which was largely formulated. What I'm about to say, this idea in my head, years ago when I was really, really, really watching you and Sean very closely, because you guys not only taught me a lot of e-collar, but taught me a lot of the, if this makes sense, taught me a lot of the ethos that a trainer needs to like adopt if they want to be a successful e-collar trainer in this world.
As a business owner. So I think,
correct.
So Sean and I are not doing seminars anymore, and that's not because of falling out. Like we talk, well, I shouldn't say talk. We text often.
Right.
And you really can't talk to Sean's just got his own very tight schedule. And obviously doesn't involve incoming or outgoing phone calls. So I think that, but Sean is doing a great job with his shadow program now. It's very successful.
Yeah.
And then myself and Joelle have started this mastermind. And I think the difference is I think number one, the benefit of this is the seminars we were doing were geared towards the beginning dog trainers. So a lot of adversaries were not shown. Sean right now is doing a fantastic, shadow program, which is with like literally you're watching him with client dogs, so it's like nothing is held back. And Joelle and I are doing this mastermind, which is 50% dog training, but then listen, there's a whole nother, like you're not a dog trainer, you're a business owner, so it's like there's a whole thing to that. It's like every dollar that comes in, it's not like getting a paycheck, like maybe 25% of that money is yours, so I think that it allows us then to also show like the nitty gritty, nothing being held back. I think that going back to the ethics, is it really ethical to show a brand new dog trainer harsher corrections for more complicated behaviors?
Right. If they're not ready for that.
If they're not ready for that, because everybody wants to work with aggressive dogs, but I'm like, you haven't put the work in yet. You need to get your skill set up there on working with easier dogs and quantity of dogs, because there's so many variations of even on our podcast. I would say it's 95% wide paintbrush strokes results that work. But even the advice that I give on the podcast, it might not work for some of the dogs that we've got here at our boarding train because there's too many variables and fine tuning, but not enough to say every dog is different. I mean, most dogs will do what you want for the good stuff and will not do what you want for the bad stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's pretty consistent. You just have to know how to deliver it, and you have to understand motivation in dogs and learning theory in dogs, and it's not that complicated to do. So
and that was the element of you guys that I was looking to bring up, because I found that fascinating. Was you were talking like before, I brought up Sean about choosing to not work with certain clients because and not for any other reason than it just may not be your cup of tea, like for the client, and you as the professional understand that even if they don't think you're right about that in the moment or whatever, then they can go find somebody and truly be successful, because this is a team sport, right?
I think that's important, and I think that it's important that gets twisted as you're only in this for the money. And I'm like, well,
doesn't every client pay the same?
But every client, no matter what the behavior is. But I think this is the thing. We have a 12,000 square foot building.
Right.
We've got a staff. We're a legitimate business. Therefore, comes with that comes huge amount of taxes,
overhead,
licensing, overhead. Like our electric bill last month was $1,500 a month. I mean, it's so it costs us probably around $300,000 to stay open, to run it, even if nobody walked in the door. So with that, obviously, if we're going to help as many people as we want to, we need to generate funds.
Right.
But on the flip side, I do about $100,000 a year in pro bono work. And that could be a combination of free tickets to my seminars to certain people, to I'll give you an extra week of board and train because we feel your dog will benefit from it, to a free board and train because I want to help you and you don't have the budget, but you've got the right mindset, so I know you'll win. I'd rather do a free board and train with somebody that I know will win than a paid board and train with somebody that
who's lazy,
think they can just write a check and their dog will magically change. So I think that it's important that this is a business, and also I have no prosperity issues. It's like, I am sorry, I don't want to be broke living in my car. And how can I help every dog? I got 5,000 free videos. Like,
right.
Why is it that every day that definitely, I know somebody put it through Google Translate, so English is not their primary language. Why is it that every day we get all these letters DM to me or email to me saying that they fully rehabbed off-leash train their dog with our free content, and I never even talked to them? So if you're going to even spend the money and hire us, like, you're way ahead of the game. You'd think it was in your best interest to also follow through. But I think living in a society now where even drive-throughs are not quick enough, and
Right.
you know,
Good
and
point.
food delivery is not quick enough, and it's like, what do you mean you don't offer 1-day shipping Amazon? It's like, well, they do. Just look up on your roof, the drone's right there, you know. So I think that it's important that as a dog trainer with a business, at the beginning, you probably want to take as many clients as possible just to get the experience. But eventually, when I do especially on Patreon, we have a Patreon channel and we do a Zoom room on Tuesdays. It's a combination of dog trainers and dog owners, and then doing a lot of mentorship. The biggest thing is complaints, I guess, that people have on non-compliant owners. And I'm like, you let them in the door. Like, you, whose fault is that? It's like, it's like you let them in the door. And I think another thing is, like, I'm hearing a lot of grumbling these days about these pandemic puppies. And I'm like, do you mean job security? I mean, I'm like, or why don't we?
Yeah, you're flipping the perspective.
Or why don't we flip the whole perspective and saying, of course, there's a lot of people that probably shouldn't have gotten dogs. Of course there is. But instead, why don't you come up with a whole video series on, call it
what they should be doing better,
how to train your pandemic dog, even though technically all dogs are the same, sort of. But it's like, from the very beginning, we were preaching post-pandemic train your dog, and it was geared highly towards separation anxiety because we knew that all of a sudden one day, everyone's going to disappear. Like, you know, a lot of people definitely are working from home now, but even if you're working from home, you still can't go out on a date because you're not there. So, and then the kids disappear, all their friends disappear, you disappear. So it's like your dog better understand the concept of actually being alone, because anybody that's worked with large amounts of dogs knows dogs can chew through sheetrock. Like, they can go through their crates, go through sheetrock, and literally run down the streets. So
Brent and I had a client. You know, we used to work together. That's how we know each other. I used to live in LA. Like, I'm in Phoenix now. I've been here for a few years.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm from California myself. You know, as well as Brent. We actually grew up in the same city.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
We didn't know each other
before you knew each other.
Yeah, like, well, we met in Los Angeles.
Okay,
but we're from the same city. That's not LA.
That's pretty wild.
You know? So what I'm asking you then is, you know, when you and Sean were doing T3s and you know, and all that good stuff, I think one of the single most important lessons I learned from you guys, and I never got to do T3 myself, but I do know a lot of trainers around here who swear by it. And it was actually that trainer. If you remember last year, I emailed you like right around December, you know, when I found out that you were doing the seminar in Phoenix. But I was that guy that was like, hey man, I want to go, but I can only go like half the time. Is that okay? Because I found out about it super late. So, you know, so I had already had like my weekend with clients and stuff, you know? So what I'm getting at is, it was you guys, the first, and I think almost even today, almost the only dog trainers I've ever heard say this online. It's okay to vet out clients, but you guys put an interesting like advertising spin on it, like not in a negative, like because Sean, I think, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Sorry, Sean. I love Sean O'Shea.
Right.
In my understanding of everything, you're the more experienced trainer. In my personal opinion, you're more like diverse in what you do, which I don't see that as necessarily a negative for Sean.
I mean,
because
I've got more years on him, but I think that I'm not quite sure where he gets some of these dogs that he works with, because because you want to talk about, like, when you've got a 200-pound dog that has put dogs in the hospital, put people in the hospital, it's like, and the owners want to keep it, and the owners are on board, and the success rate he has is high.
Oh, it's insane.
And the owner success rate is also high. Now, anybody that's worked with a lot of aggression, It's like nobody's got 100%. There's no,
Right.
even brain surgeons don't have 100%.
Right, right.
So I think that it's important that you do vet out folks, but you offer them an alternative. You're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm not going to take your money. I think that you need to do your homework first, then work through that. And then if you're ready to hire me still, then circle back around, not to sound like a politician,